being an entrepreneur sounds cool, but the reality of building a business is very, very difficult. Every level that you hit, there's a lot of things that suck that you just won't want to do. What you're capable of is on the other side. I don't feel like it.
And if you're committed to what it is that you're trying to do, nothing is going to stop you from getting there.
Welcome back to another episode of Real Business Owners. Guys, fair warning, this podcast is going to be completely different than the majority of podcasts that I've ever done. It's a solo episode. It's a personal story of mine that involves my wife and the stresses of business and just the normal struggles that we all deal with as we're trying to build and grow something unique and special that has the ability to change our lives financially. So what comes with that is a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And I wanted to let you know in a moment of weakness how I showed up in an improper way and hope that my story helps save some of you guys from not making that same mistake. So per usual, if you guys are ready to level up, go to joinrbo.com. Enjoy today's episode.
There's no real workaround when it comes to stress. I mean, even if you're broke, you're going to be stressed. If you're living a less than life, you're going to be stressed. If you're living a more than life, you're going to be stressed. We're living in a society and an environment in which, there's a lot of inputs and a lot of stimulation. Therefore, we stay in a state of stress. I know for me, in the first 10 years or so of, building businesses and managing people and looking at numbers and trying to figure out what's next, could we adjust something in terms of payment model? Could we accept payments and get more yeses versus the upfront? Like, there were so many different things that I would look at to try to force these businesses that we had to evolve and to grow. Is it more sales meetings? Is it more mindset meetings? Is it more going around and doing high fives and some ass slaps? And, is it more bringing in, there's so many decisions that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as entrepreneurs that without a doubt, we're going to get to a point where we feel burnout and we feel stressed and overwhelmed where we want to quit and give up. That will be a natural part of the process of becoming successful. And you're going to go through these periods multiple times over, right? If you're not stretching yourself and you're not, going out there to try to force your business to evolve, then you just flat out won't. And forcing something to evolve means that you're going to have to bear something that you've never bared before, which means that you're going to deal with another level of stress that you're unaccustomed to. And I want to tell you, be careful about what you blame your stress on, especially those that are married or have children, plus building and growing a business at the exact same time. That is going to be one of the most difficult things to juggle that anybody will ever have to juggle. Growing a business at the same time of growing a family. Growing a family by itself has many, many challenges. Many challenges. Growing a business by itself has many challenges. Put those two things together, it's a melting pot for massive stress. I hit a point of stress that I didn't feel like I could tolerate anymore. There was plenty of times that I did the just not today. One good night of sleep will fix it. And 9 times out of 10, one good night of sleep did fix it. I'd wake up in a different frame of mind. My emotions of being overwhelmed were gone, and I was ready to attack a new day. But what happens when you get that one night and it doesn't work? And then again, it doesn't work. And you keep telling yourself, just not today, just not today, just not. And it ends up being so repetitive that you want to quit every single day. And you're talking yourself into continuing to show up even despite the level of stress that you're dealing with. Eventually something will give. You will start to delegate tasks. You will relieve yourself of responsibility and stress. And you're going to say, this is too much. I just don't care. Just take it. It's okay if you make mistakes. It's part of the process. I'll handle it when you make the mistake. So the pressure got so great that it required you to delegate. Usually that's what ends up happening for business owners to finally get to the point of making that next hire or delegating. They get maxed out on a stress level and they're just like, I can't take it anymore. They tolerate that stress until they no longer can. And then they start shifting and making moves and doing something they probably should have done a long time ago with inside of their business so that they could relieve themselves of some of that stress and some of that pressure so that they don't, have those days where it's just like, just don't quit today. and they just feel kind of at a low place. There was a time, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. So maybe it was 8 years in, something like that. I said, something's got to go. I've got to take something off of my plate. And when you're, 7, 8, 9 years into business and you've made it your whole life, like literally your life revolves around business. It's the first thing that you think about when you wake up, last thing that you think about before you go to bed. It's literally vacations. You're thinking about your business. You're emailing yourself ideas or writing down ideas or, reaching out to people or people are reaching out. It's just literally your entire life. And so when you're talking about taking something off of your plate, the last thing that you think about is taking the business off of your plate. But if you're raising a family that's causing a lot of stress, maybe you're going to utilize that as the area in which you choose to take things off of your plate to relieve you of stress. And I'm going to share a personal story with you guys that I've never shared with anybody. I mean, there's a select few people that know about it, but it's, when I say select few, a very select few. And so I'm just trying to be as open and genuine and authentic as I possibly can so that you guys can know that you're not alone and that you could relate to this story. But it got to a breaking point for me where finally I got home from work one day and I walked up to my wife and I said, I want a divorce. What I chose to do with the level of stress that I was experiencing at that point in business is it was time to remove things off of my plate that I deemed as stressful. I had to make room so that I could survive another day. And what I chose to take off of my plate was the stress of marriage. It was a melting pot of stress at home, young family, still trying to figure out how to live with each other, husband and wife, while having young kids. Most of you that are listening that have a family can understand how you're evolving into these adults and into these parents, yet changing so much as an individual that sometimes that creates friction between a spouse, and you're changing so much over here for your business that it might create friction between you and your spouse. You're trying to live a certain way. I'm going to start reading books. When I don't read, I'm going to start exercising. These are things that you're doing to invest into yourself so that you can show up in a greater manner within your business. But it also is taking away from time that you would have with your spouse or with your children. And, some people feel guilty about that. And I'm not saying to straight up neglect family in order to become successful. I will tell you that I didn't think I showed up at a high level in my home for, probably the first 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I always want to work on that. I always want to get better, just like I always want to get better with my fitness. I always want to get better with my finances and being a better friend. Like, I don't know if I'm really that great of a friend because I spend so much time alone. I isolate so much and go into my own mind and just think and ask myself questions and then answer those questions and then go to self-improvement, listening to self-improvement. And then I go back to some of those questions and create an answer that makes sense to me with where I'm at and what I'm doing with my life and how much I still sacrifice. I'm more uncomfortable now in terms of unrequired discomfort that I don't have to experience, but I choose to experience that because I create the environment for it. I experience more of that now at the level of success that I have because I feel even more obligated to take myself to another level, go further, go deeper, become more, so that you can make an impact and your life can matter and you can live with purpose and, all of these things that I experience in my own mind. And once your basic needs are met, your roof over your head, food in your mouth and shelter, and life becomes pretty meaningless if you're hitting a certain level of success. If you don't recreate yourself into an individual that cares more for other people and the fact that your life has the ability to impact people in a positive way, depending on how you choose to live it. And most people are choosing to live a less than life. And you're giving people an example of, okay, well, they're doing that, so I have the ability to do that. If everybody lived a life where they held themselves to a very high standard, then other people would be like, well, I need to do that too. And so we can live in a manner which inspires other people to become more, or we can live in a manner that gives them a reason to validate their mediocrity and them being average. I came home one day, sat her down and said, hey, I want a divorce. Well, we can work this out. We can do this. And we can go to therapy or counseling. And it was just like, at that point, it was like, no, that is more and I can't handle more. I was the only individual that was doing customer support, and we had about 5,000 customers. I was managing, I was hiring, I was firing, I was creating systems and processes and doing customer support because I was my own worst enemy. I wasn't delegating anything. Nobody could do what I could do the way that I could do it. And that mindset got me so deep and so dark where I was overloaded with stress and I couldn't take it anymore. But I wasn't going to change anything about myself on the business side of things because that seemed to be working. So there was an exchange that was being made, and I'm like, that exchange is worth it. I'm willing to deal with that level of stress because I get X from it. And then over here on the family side of things, it was like, I don't know, like I'm sure by the time I'm 50 or 60 years old and I have kids that are older and we went through all this friction together as husband and wife, that we would look back and say, wow, we made it through that and we grew so close. We had a lot of tough times, but we overcame it together. I'm sure having that hindsight would be a lot easier going through it. But for me, I had the hindsight of, hey, there's an exchange being made here on the business side of things. It was like, I put in this amount of time and look at what I'm receiving from it. So you're, again, just in your thoughts, validating like, it's okay to go through this because I'm at least receiving X from it. But over here on the family side, you're going through X and you're like, okay, what am I receiving from it? Right? Like if you feel like that you're at a low point and you just no longer want to fight the fight anymore and you don't want to battle because you're doing customer support over here and you're already battling every single day, running a business and battling with employees and battling with customers and battling systems and processes and getting better and all the ideas and thoughts and the finances and everything that comes with, building and growing a business and the decisions that need to be made, on a day-to-day basis that can sometimes feel overwhelming. I get all that. I chose to try to take my family off of the plate. I blamed my stress more so on my marriage and my kids and, leading a family like that was too much. And I couldn't see the full exchange there because we were dealing with more just stress and difficulties of changing diapers and, learning how to raise a family together, because that Trevor wasn't into self-improvement yet. It was more just financial improvement. And I would do anything for the needle to move financially, but I wouldn't do anything in regards to growing Trevor as a human being so that he can handle more stress. I wasn't willing to do more for Trevor so that he can evolve into an individual that thinks a little bit differently and has a new perspective on, what he should be doing in his business and delegating and learning how to manage and delegate more so than operate and take on. I hit that breaking point, and that's a big, big regret of mine. What I found out through that process of dealing with an overwhelming amount of stress is, first off, that level of business stress isn't worth it. You're better off exchanging money to reduce your stress. It's the principle of buying back your time through, investing into other people, hiring people that have the ability to do what you do. Maybe not as great as you do it, but how you feel is very valuable. And the level of stress that you're bearing is something that you have to have top of mind all the time, because you don't ever want to reach that point where it's just too much. And if you're dealing with a level of stress, you have to take a look at your life and say, okay, what can I adjust? What can I, make those adjustments very, very quickly so that you don't end up blaming the stress on a factor that had nothing to do with why you were feeling the way that you were feeling, when in reality, it's just part of growing and building a business. And I just don't want you guys to make the same mistake I did and cause any hurt or pain to people that you love and care about. Right after that, I found a place to stay and live for 30 days. I got an Airbnb and paid it up front. But the whole time I was there going through that phase, and it was only like a 5-month period, right? A 5-month phase that I lived on my own and away from my family. We never even talked to attorneys or dated other people or, none of that. It was a moment in time for me to reflect and realize, like, okay, well, even when I came home and I was alone, I still had stress. There were still problems. I still felt some overwhelm. So I was placing blame over here on my family when in reality, it was the process of building and growing a business is just that grueling. And sometimes we make the mistake of blaming this grueling process of building and growing something that has the ability to change our lives financially on other things, like your kids or like your spouse. And maybe you make a decision that isn't the best decision based upon the level of stress and overwhelm that you're feeling because of the business. I made a huge mistake. Obviously moved back in, 4 or 5 months later, something like that. And, my wife is still my wife. By the time you guys listen to this, our 15-year anniversary would have come and gone. And so since then we've had another child, rearranged our life to the point to where, hey, our goals of this big house on a hill and, this type of lifestyle has adjusted to, hey, let's live out on property and get chickens and, have horses and, just we want a different type of lifestyle, just kind of, I guess, unevolving from the evolution of society in terms of bigger is better and more is better, when in reality, I grew up in a very, very, very tiny home with 7 kids, and, I have very fond memories, even though I grew up poor. So I wanted a smaller house to keep the family a little closer together on a bigger piece of property. And none of all this would have happened or been possible if I didn't figure out that I'm blaming stress over here that I receive on this over here, and that almost cost me. I want to challenge you guys. Obviously, it's a holiday season. We're going into a new year, and I want you to know that, I deal with stress. A lot of the discomfort that I currently experience is by design. It's not necessarily because I have to, but what I do think is unusual is that I put myself through a higher level of discomfort than the majority of people that should be putting themselves through discomfort in order to evolve out of necessity, because they are hurting financially. And I don't really have some of those same burdens, but I still want to evolve even more so than I ever have before. I want to be a forever student of evolving self that has the ability to serve other people and impact the lives of many. And so you're not going to be able to do that if that's one of your goals as well, if you don't understand that the stress that you're currently going through is temporary, and you might make a decision based upon that temporary stress that could change or alter your life forever. I want you to just change your perspective in regards to what you're dealing with, learn how to delegate very early on, value your sanity over the dollar, and delegate. And you will actually grow a bigger business quicker that way than holding on to every little problem that you have that could potentially crumble your life, like it almost did mine if my wife and myself weren't emotionally mature enough after the fact to kind of reconcile and figure those things out.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Real Business Owners. Hopefully that was valuable to you. The only thing I ask, per usual, rate, review the show, share the show with somebody you love and care about. And if you're looking for some of the more financial, tactical information, make sure that you check out Easier Money, the podcast. Other than that, keep kicking ass. We'll see you next week.